Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our virtual tour and tasting with Philip Harper and the Kinoshita Brewing Company. Liloa, nice to see you.
Hello,
Are you ready?
brother. How's it going, man?
I'm
ready.
Good, I'm good.
Ready.
How about you? Hey, Tasho.
How's it going? How's it going? Is this the all Hawaii edition? I see we got Liloa, Craig. Where's your Aloha shirt, Chris?
I forgot. I can, if I need to rock it, you give me 2 seconds, I can go throw one on. It won't take much. We got people rolling in. This is great. I'm going to keep admitting people. We have a lot of registrations for tonight, so I'm gonna hold off before we launch for a little bit longer so that we can get as many people in here before we start all the fun stuff. But again, as always, super excited to have the crowd here to join the World Sake Imports virtual tour and tasting. We have a live one for you tonight. It's going to be fun. As Tasho mentioned earlier, other than myself, it's the all Hawaiian team.
Crazy part is we're all related too.
Yeah.
Actually, well,
my cousin Liloa.
I'm one of your hosts. I am Chris Johnson. I work as the National Sales Manager for World Sake Imports. I've been lucky enough to be with the company for 4 years, but I've been a fan of what they do for way longer. It's a wonderful company, great sakes, and obviously we get to have fun and hang out with people like the great Philip Harper. I am also at times known as the Sake Ninja, so you may have seen me there in the past. Tasho, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm originally from Honolulu, Hawaii. Been with the World Sake Ohana pretty much since birth with my father who started the company, training me in the izakayas since I was about 2 years old. But since then, I've been a sales rep for Southern California. During my training, I've had the experience to work in 4 different sake breweries for about 3 weeks at a time, which really opened my eyes to how great this world of sake and how passionate these guys are. And now I'm back here in Honolulu City handling the sales responsibilities. Aloha.
Fantastic. And Liloa, can you let us know a little bit about yourself?
yeah, born and raised in Hawaii, and got into sake when I was in the Navy, thinking that I knew what sake was. Right? Woo, hot sake bombs. I'm the man. Following my passion, and it wasn't until my buddy took me to Tochigi during Ohanami where I got to learn what real sake was, G-sake, craft sake. And from then it was just like lights out, man. And knew about World Sake for years. I just always looked at World Sake as the epitome of a portfolio that I'd love to, if not drink, at least represent, or actually, if not represent, at least drink and enjoy. And fortunately, I get to do both now. And met Chris Pierce years ago, and humble guy, a lot of knowledge, plethora of he's like a walking encyclopedia, super humble guy, and fortunate enough to be a part of the Ohana now.
Awesome. And then Craig, throw up your little or voice over your hello for everybody. Let you know who you are.
Jump on.
Aloha kako, everybody. So originally from Hawaii, but plenty of time on the mainland. Been working with sake for the last 20 years. Guides my course in hospitality. I've had an opportunity to work for World Sake Imports, both on the big island of Hawaii, where my family's from, and then here in New York, as well as another well-known brewery that will remain nameless. I love it. I think it's world's most perfect alcohol. And since I kind of consider myself a sake historian, that's why I get to be your chat palm mom.
Awesome.
Wizard. Craig, the wizard.
All right. We're at 75% of people answer the poll. I'll give everybody about 30 more seconds to jump in there if you'd like to. And then we're going to run over the results. But man, Tasho going to Kyoto. How exciting. We're super ready for this. We got 207 people in the tour today, and we've got fun sakes, fun stuff, a lot of good things. I'm going to end the poll, and I'll share the results. And Tasha, why don't you talk to us about it?
All right, so it looks like 75% of our viewers today have tried namazake. Muroka, the non-charcoal filtered, we've got about 53%. 73% have tried genshu, Yamahai around the same at 75%. Ambient fermentation with the spontaneous fermentation with the house yeast, only about 39%. Minimal intervention, 33%. All of the above in one sake, looks like 26% have tried that.
Well, for those of you who were able to pick up Red Label, you'll be able to answer that last question as a yes at the end of tonight. All right, so we're gonna stop sharing. So we know we're going to Kyoto, the land of temples and all that wonderful stuff, but can Liloa, can you show us exactly where we're actually going to visit?
Most of us go to Kyoto here. Can we zoom in? But Philip, Kinoshita Shuzo, is actually located way up here. It's actually, if you're to catch a train, it's like the very last train stop. It's kind of like a bus stop, actually, with a bench, little overhang, and that's it. And there's like open fields, and you're stuck in the middle of like snow or whatever. It is not the typical Kyoto that we're used to seeing or visiting or seeing. There's minimal temples, but there's a lot of open fields, and there's a bay and the beautiful ocean right above. Again, the takeaway from this is that it's just not the atypical Kyoto we're thinking of. This is way out in the countryside, very close to the ocean. A very unique style of sake, in part by who's making it, and also where it's located. So that mountain right there, Shirahama, is only like 500 feet. It's located right behind the brewery. It's only 500 feet high, but that's basically the source of their water. So it's spring water, and they actually had a couple wells dug there, but because of the what do you call that, proximity to the ocean, some of the salt water got in there, so they don't use that well water. But because of the level of seawater that's in the well water, they use the well water to spray and help melt the snow because of the content of salt. But the with most really good sake brewing, you need soft water, and so the water from the mountain, the spring water, is extremely soft water. So Philip's able to really manipulate that and just make just an amazing sake that actually covers in addition to his aged sake, just a pretty wide expanse of styles of sake. And this just an example of the snow that they experience. So if you're catching a train and you got off at the last station, you'd be standing in that basically a bus stop in that snow. And this is a picture of Philip applying a label to one of his sakes.
So one of the big things here is, as you saw quickly in the previous slide, is that there is a lot of snow on this side of Kyoto. They're close to the Sea of Japan. They get that cold air coming across Siberia and then meeting the warmer air of the Sea of Japan, and boom, snow. And this was actually a photo taken about 2 weeks ago when we were there. So when we did our test runs, there's quite a bit of snow. But one of the things that Philip wanted us to get us started and remind you about is that they do a lot of aging. And so the next picture that you saw for a minute, it says 2016 BY, which is the brewing years. They make sure you understand that we brewed it in 2016 and we aged it to the day that we released it. And we like the aspect of what happens with that aging. They do lots of different aging, and we're gonna get to see that as we go through. But that aging does different things to the color of the sake. So when you look at next, you can see these are all different sakes that are made at Tamagawa Brewery, or at Kinoshita Shuzo, but the Tamagawa brand. These cups are called janome. This is commonly what one would judge sake out of when you're looking for clarity. It's a clear white with blue porcelain. Allows you to see the color, as you can notice in this picture. But that aging will help bring out the Maillard effect and start to bring different colors and deepen as it's aging. And it doesn't necessarily mean the sake is bad. And sometimes that sake isn't meant to age and it becomes off. But with what Philip does and what we do here is we're looking for that aging on purpose.
But where does the color come from, Chris? Is that from the barrels? How does that happen?
It's from oxidation, minimal oxidation, and then temperature fluctuation helps add to that aging. Style of production, amount of koji ratio, all these things end up playing into the final color of the product. Again, everybody, thank you for joining us. We're going to turn it over and let the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Philip Harper say hello.
Hey, Chris, can you see me?
I can see you.
Are you seeing me? Okay, here I am. Hi, everyone.
Hey,
you know, this is a really bad time to be talking to brewers. Brewers are no good for anything at this time of year. But it's good to see everyone.
What's up, bro?
So you don't want to look at my my exhausted face. So let's show you some scenery.
Yes, we do.
Scenery. So we still got some snow on the ground. We had, Chris was saying we had about a foot of snow on the ground about 2 weeks ago. It's pretty much all melted now. This is Kabutayama. This is a slightly higher mountain, but still not all that high. Way over there, you can't actually see the sea here, but just down where that truck went through there's a little river here. And at different times of the day, that's fresh water or seawater, depending on where the tide is and what the flow of the water is. So this is outside the brewery here. This is one of our warehouses. We age a load of sake, so we have like warehouses all over the place full of sake. So this is one of them. We have another warehouse in the next village, which is the same size as this and is completely full to the rafters with sake getting older and waiting to come to you. One of the things I think that makes us a bit different from a lot of breweries is that we aim most of our stuff at room temperature. So there's no refrigeration in this building at all. It's all completely room temperature. We do age a little bit of sake at in the fridge, but for us this is much more a style thing and not a quality control thing. Our sake is fine at room temperature, but you get different effects with sake in the fridge and sake at room temperature. Just to prove that we do have fridges, this is a fridge here. This is a fridge. We store a lot of our summer sake here. We have a summer sake called Icebreaker, which has just started filling up this fridge now. We're just in the process of bottling that now. Most people put sake in the fridge because they like low temperatures. The temperature in our brewery at this time of year is like about 2 degrees. If we put it in the fridge, then it's 10 degrees, so it ages better. You still hearing me there, Chris?
Yep, you're doing great.
Good. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, most people put sake in the fridge to keep it young, keep it fresh. We're not really interested in young and fresh. So we put it in the fridge because it actually ages more quickly in the fridge than it does in the brewery. So let's bring down the Thunderbird's door here. Heading back into the brewery now.
Fantastic.
This is our logo that you'll have seen several times already. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. These are the water tanks here. This is all water for brewing and washing rice and stuff. Craig and the guys were already telling you about where the water came from. It's the mountain up here behind the warehouse there. And you're quite right, because it's a low mountain. You get these cool stories from breweries about how their water seeps up through the bedrock for 300 years before they get to use it. It's about 30 minutes before we get to use it. So, as everyone was saying, really soft water. A lot of people say sake doesn't really drink like soft water sake, but don't know what that's about. So, coming down to the brewery here, this old building here, this is just a warehouse now. In the old days, the family here, they used it for making miso and soy sauce for their own use. Now they buy it like everyone else. So coming into the back door of the brewery here, there's stuff going on, so it's going to be a bit noisy, I think. So this first area here is just a space for washing gear and stuff. As you can see, the steaming has finished for the day, so everyone's just like packing up and cleaning up stuff here. This here is the cooling machine. They're just getting ready to wash that for the day. Up the back here, this is the steamer. so we can steam. We brew on average one batch every other day. We average about 1,400 kilograms of white rice in a batch. So this steamer can handle about 700 kilograms in a day. The steaming rice, I mean, that is the morning job. So that's all done for the day now. And the area we're moving into now, that's my number 2 running away from you there. The area here, this is the area for rice washing. That's the job that we do first thing in the afternoon. We wash all our rice in this little baby machine here. This is all stuff that's been in 15 kilogram batches. The machine, the way it works is that you basically circulate the rice with water and bubbles for 2 minutes to get it clean. In most breweries, this is the kind of this is a very labor-intensive way of doing it. So most people do this for competition sake, but we make all our sake this way, which is kind of hard work for my guys. But my feeling is if you get this right, then life is a lot easier later on. And koji is like koji mold is a key microorganism in sake brewing, and because it's a mold, it's very moisture sensitive. So the amount of moisture that you make the rice absorb at the washing stage is a real key moment, I think. So moving on here, this is heading up to the fermentation room now. Those of you who can read Japanese will be able to see. It says shikomigura on the left, that's fermentation room. On the right, it says motoba, which is yeast starter room. We actually have two rooms for yeast starter. Let me show you the one for ordinary sokujo, quick fermenting yeast starter is back here. Lots of washing noises. So this is the only batch of sokujo moto we've got going at the moment. Daiginja. This is one little baby that's just starting here. So when we're making yeast starter in the modern style, we do it in that room here in the conventional way, adding lactic acid and pure yeast cultures. It takes 2 weeks to make it that way. Back in our other yeast starter room up here, this is where we make all the stuff where we don't add yeast. This is kind of unusual thing that we do here. All the Kimoto Yamahai style sake that we make without adding yeast cultures at all. And this is what you've got going on over here now. I've got a whole bunch of different. This is a little baby bunch of Yamahai. This is a daiginja we make with wild yeast. The product name is Gyokuryu. We've got a batch of Kimoto on the go over here. Over here, this is one that's in English. This is a time machine. This is already pretty much finished now. So there's a batch of ice water in there, cooling that down there. So when we brew in this style, which we call spontaneous fermentation, we don't add anything in but rice, water, and yeast, which is how it would have been done in these buildings 172 years ago when the company started. But there are very few breweries making sake this way anymore. Almost everyone adds yeast halfway through. And you can see these like big, thick earth walls. So this time of year here, it's like really cold outside. When it gets to spring, in March, you get the odd day where the temperature will rocket up to about 20 degrees. But once it's cold in here, it stays cold for ages because of the insulation effect of these old earth walls is really surprising. And you can see, I mean, this is a earth wall unfinished. So we can't wash these walls. If you wash them, they dissolve. So basically, we have 172 years of microorganisms and yeast and stuff which have been accumulating here to drive our spontaneous fermentation sake, like the red label Yamahai, which we'll be tasting later, and like Time Machine. So these are the main fermentation tanks up here. Until about 7 years ago, this was all the space we had, and there was never enough space and never enough sake. So 7 years ago, the boss pushed the boat out, and we made a big extension, which is what we're coming into here. Suddenly a lot more brighter. And we have this magic technology in here called refrigeration, which, to be honest, we don't really need at this time of year, but it's really handy early in the season, at the end of the season. This is the sake god looking after us. We have a shrine to the sake god upstairs. moving through here, this is the pressing room. I'm just ranting on here, Chris. You got to stop me if I'm talking too much or not enough. Yeah.
No, you're doing great, Philip. No one wants to hear from me. They hear from me every month. It's great to hear your voice.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Philip,
Okay, so
Philip, the cool thing is all the little nuances you're talking about are the things that everyone wants to know. They want to know why is that bucket behind the door? You know what I mean? They want to know all the little secrets and nuances. So don't stop.
These buckets.
Actually, yeah. No, but in general, but yeah.
Those are just for carrying sake and water or whatever needs to be carried. Tamaoke, they're called in Japanese. This is the press here. We're not pressing today. This is also, I mean, this building is new. You can say this is 7 years old. The building itself, we can press one batch of sake overnight with this machine, and we've also got refrigeration in here, which has made my life a lot easier in terms of keeping it clean and so on. Down here we've got this is the sake lees. This is what's left over after you press. So this is the remains of the of rice solids and koji solids, which we don't use here. We sell that off, and it's used for making animal feeds and fertilizers and making Japanese cooking, stuff like that. We've got another Thunderbird's door here. These doors are all insulated, so they're too heavy to move by hand. So you get this kind of like a Thunderbird's effect going on.
I noticed some people said they were thirsty. Feel free to crack open a bottle and sip on your own until we get to the tasting part. But we're not too far away now. Yeah.
So this is another building that one of the series that we made 7 years ago. This is, I mean, we've got new sake in here now. Already talked about the icebreaker product. So this year's icebreaker is in here waiting to be bottled now. We're in the middle of bottling it at the moment, I think I said already. We also, we age sake in here as well. So we like aging sake. So this is back to the BY thing here, Sanju BY. So this is by the Japanese reckoning according to the number of years of the emperor's reign. So the previous emperor got up to 30 before abdicating. So last year was one BY. This is again from 29 BY. So this is 3 years old now. And so we age a lot of sake for 3 or 4 years before shipping it. And again, you'll notice in this warehouse here, there is absolutely no refrigeration. So all the sake we're aging here is completely at room temperature, which we find works best for our sake, and is also, of course, good for the environment because you don't have that need for electricity generation and stuff. And this is the oldest part of the brewery here. 172 years ago, it would all have happened in here. These are all just tanks for storage now. This is the Tokubetsu Junmai, the heart of oak sake that you guys drink a lot of for us in America. So this is brewing year 30. So this is in year 3 now. So you guys will get that sometime next year. We've got a little room here over here where we do analysis. You can see it's a real high-tech mad scientist lab here. This gadget here is for distilling. So we distill the sake so we can measure alcohol content. And we basically will aim to measure alcohol content, sugar content, acids and amino acids on a daily basis. This is a sample waiting to be analyzed. So this is the fermenting sake here, and we're straining that, waiting to be analyzed after lunch.
So cool.
Funky stuff. So these are more storage tanks here. We got this is the Honjozo sake that the local people drink most of. This is from last year. Still got a few tanks of sake from the year before kicking around here. This is some more new sake. This product is called Hitokui-iwa, which means man-eating rock, which is actually a rock that exists on the mountain that I showed you first. And we're bottling that today. This is the bottling plant here. Say we're bottling, they seem to have finished. Oh no, here we go. So the sake is being bottled. This is all the bottling equipment here. This is a machine for washing bottles. And here is the filling machine.
Brewery in action.
Yep. Wheels of industry. And that then this is pasteurized sake now. So we're cooling it, and we have a real more high-tech equipment here for cooling. You can see. You can buy a machine to do this, but it costs about as much as a sports car. So we do it this way, which is a bit cheaper and still.
Hey Philip, is that well water?
We do it in 2 stages here. We use well water at the first stage, and then we wash it again with fresh water to get rid of the salt. So we've got it 2 stages going on here.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And we can bottle in one go on the machine you saw there, but we have a lot of the diagonal label that you see on a lot of our products. These are all applied by hand. This is my right-hand woman, Itoi-san.
Hey, gozaimasu.
Yeah, so when you look at these things, all of this is labeled by hand, and she is so precise. I mean, if you had me doing this, they would be all over the place. But she's a technician.
So I mean, I think everyone should realize that everything is hand applied, right? Not machine applied.
Yeah, we label some things by machine, but I mean, there's a lot of hand labeling going on every day. Because one of the reasons being that we've already they showed you these the labels showing the brewing year.
Yeah.
These all of these are applied by hand. So every single one of those is being put on mainly by Itoi-san, who you just met. And also these diagonal labels that you're familiar with from the red label product. That says Unpasteurized. Yeah, all of those are applied by hand. And you can see that it looks like they were applied by a machine, but it's really my Terminator friend from the they just introduced who's doing this. She's a real core member of our team. So
complete and utter FOMO about that store. It looks like there's a whole bunch of sakes I've never had.
Okay. Well, this is our little shop. I mean, so we have a bunch of stuff. I mean, so we have all the sake that you sell. Here's the Heart of Oak. We also have a bunch of sakes that you guys sadly don't have yet. This is a Junmai Ginjo made with omachi rice.
Oh no way.
This is man-eating rock with scary artwork.
Yeah, that was the one she was just labeling.
Yeah, that's right. And this is a Junmai Ginjo made from Iwai rice, which is only exists in Kyoto. And we're shipping the 4-year-old version of this. This is drinking extremely well at the moment. This is our end of year product. We bottle this. This is called Fukubukuro, which means lucky dip, and we sell this at over the new year, which is just about to run out now. Here's another really cute label that you guys don't have yet.
Nice.
I like that you said yet.
Yeah, and this is an aged Yamahai. This is about 12% alcohol, great for drinking hot. We have Kimoto made from organic rice. We have a bunch of limited editions. So these are all the products that I just introduced. So we do a lot of that kind of stuff too.
All right, well, you've made us now extremely jealous and absurdly thirsty.
Okay, time to start drinking, huh?
It might be time to head that way. So as Philip's heading back to the office, I would love everybody to get ready for our kanpai. We are going to kanpai with the Kinsho, the Heart of Gold. So if you don't have that ready and open, why don't you grab it as Philip's heading back to the office. This is it, just so you remember. As we're getting ready for the tasting, remember what we talked about earlier, and if Dave would put up the picture of the wine glasses. And one of the key things when it comes to the aging of the sakes here is that, at times we've been taught that when a sake changes color, it's gone off, or it's gone to a place that it doesn't want to live. That may be true for certain sakes and certain production methods, but when it comes to the sakes from Kinoshita Brewery and the Tamagawa brand, this is something that they strive for. So you will notice different color profiles in the sakes that we taste today. Important to look at that and enjoy that. And we'll talk to Philip about each one as we taste. So again, we're starting off with the Heart of Gold. But before we describe that, let's pour it into our glass. If everybody would like to show their faces, please turn on their cameras, click on the gallery view.
Everybody, let's go.
We're gonna kanpai with this. So Philip, thank you very much for an awesome tour. Thank you everyone for joining us today. A lot more fun and a lot more information to come, but for now, thank you and Kanpai.
Kanpai. Kanpai.
Kanpai. Yummy.
That one.
Oh yeah.
Good.
Oh, you know what? So I think I honestly I took it for granted. It's just another, another daiginjo, whatever, made out of great. It's made out of Yamada Nishiki, milled down to the proper milling. But the biggest thing that I really got from this, Chris, is that, and this is kind of like for all of his sake, but it intrigued me with this one, which is why I'm drinking it out of a teacup. Because when I said, Phil, I said, dude, like, what's up? He was like, how should I drink this? He was like green tea. I'm like, what? So, I mean, I could basically scald the crap out of this sake and it still held up. So a lot of Americans were, used to like hot sake. Ooh, this is it. The box sake. You'd never think, even in the world of premium sake, you'd never think of taking a daiginjo, which you would normally enjoy at maybe a Nurukan temperature at the very warmest, maybe like around 105. With Kinsho, he's like, yeah, go ahead, man. And I think that was the turning point, even more so, in addition to meeting him in the past. Like, wow. Like, what do you do with your sakes? It's amazing. How can I enjoy this hot sake in a teacup and it still be like amazing? So, I mean, to make a long story longer, hopefully not much more. Oh, mind blowing, Philip.
All right. Thank you, Philip. We're going to hand that over to you and tell us a little bit about this sake, but you can also talk a little bit about the logo because it is quite impressive, especially on this bottle. So if you would talk about that would be great.
Yeah. So the logo, I mean, it looks like a lot of different things to a lot of different people. In fact, what it is it's taken from the Chinese characters for Tamagawa, but it's pretty stylized. So even Japanese people don't always realize that straight away. And it was designed for us by the boss's brother-in-law, who is a famous Japanese artist. And he did this design for us about 13 years ago now. Once you realize that it is the characters for Tamagawa, then everyone can see that. But people see different kanji characters in there. People have some people think it's the character for kotobuki, which means a blessing. If you turn it sideways like this, a lot of our restaurant customers in Japan say that this is fish bones. And it looks like a smiling face to people. So it looks like a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I've been doing this job for almost 30 years now, and I mean, I've never really worked with something as powerful as this series of labels that the boss's brother-in-law made for us. Now that's his name in the middle there, Katsusuke-san. His name was Sakane Katsusuke. If we got time, I can show you his paintings out in the shop later on.
Oh yeah,
we love the logo. I mean, he when he sat down to make this for us, the way he makes it is normally when you write Japanese characters, you write with a brush, With this, he actually carved away the outside part around, and what was left is the characters. And he made about a series of about 30 or 40 of different designs of these, and he spread them all out. And me and the boss looked at them, and it was an amazing afternoon for us. And so we looked at all these, and the guy said to us, he said, you can use any of these that you like, but my soul is in this one. So we said, okay, we'll take that one then. And so that's how we started with this logo.
Awesome.
Hey, Philip, some of us think that that's what we look like the next morning.
Yeah. And it's, you know, you get a lot of these calligraphy labels, and they're beautiful in their own way, but they're very hard for non-Japanese people, and also in an international way for heavy drinkers, because you have a good evening drinking sake, and you drink a great sake, and the next morning you try and remember, and they all look like the same calligraphy labels. And I think this is, as an object, it's easy not just for non-Japanese readers, but also for drinkers. I think people remember it the next day.
So it sounds like, while they say you may never find happiness at the bottom of an empty bottle, probably because it's empty, you may actually find yourself in the bottom of an empty bottle of Tamagawa.
But what that does do is it guides me to our next sake. And if Craig, could you introduce the Tokubetsu Junmai Heart of Oak? And Dave, if you could share that picture.
I sure can. So, guys, this was my mind bender when I first experienced this from Philip, and it was, way back, I think in 2012. This is what I call a brown bag sake. This opened up my mind to the falsehood of hot versus cold. I actually think at room temperature, this one is more brilliant than it is chilled at all. Heated up, it's also nice. You almost get more of the red berry notes that come off of it. But it's the mangoku rice. We've milled it down to 60%. The word tokubetsu, obviously meaning a little bit of a special brew on the junmai. We polished it to the edge of the ginjo classification, and yet it's priced a little bit less. So it gives you a bit of a deal. But heating up sake it's not bad as long as you do it right. And different sakes are better at different temperatures, and we all have a different palate. So my suggestion always is, whenever you take a bottle of sake out of the fridge, when you're at a restaurant, you order a bottle of sake, it comes out of the fridge, don't put it in an ice bucket. Let it sit on the table. Let it change slowly as you're enjoying it with your friends. And at some point, you're going to find a temperature there that you're like, hey, that's kind of nice. And if you like that bottle warmer, then that's the time to order the second bottle and have the staff heat it up for you.
I really don't like to drink this as cold. I mean, I think it's like really stiff and sharp if you drink it cold. When I go on the road with you guys in the USA, sometimes this comes up cold, and this is always like a real culture shock from me. I'm really not used to seeing or thinking about this sake cold.
No, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is really one of the sakes that I really want to drink, and like Lilo was saying, like tea hot. I mean, not the standard version of hot sake is really warm sake. And I mean, don't take my word for all this. I mean, try it for yourselves. I mean, I find it's nice at room temperature. I think if you warm it up a little bit, it goes all like stiff and unfriendly again, and then it gets really sexy and cuddly at like about 70 degrees. But the sweet is really different for everyone.
I think like Adam, my buddy Adam at Harajuku Tap Room, he was asking, what the heck do you do to your sake? Because I sure you were there. We were chit chatting about it. I was like, you take your sake, and I did what you said. I left the bottle in my garage through a hot summer, through everything, and it freaking came out like gorgeous. Anything else would have been like vinegar.
Yeah, and it's still fine. I mean, I have a kind of sake that I want to show you today. When I was collecting sake for today's event, I showed you this one already. This is the sake that we sell at the end of the year here, Fukubukuro. And this is a 3U sake. It's unpasteurized, undiluted, unfiltered.
Wow.
And I picked this up from the little shop that I showed you just now. And they've used this bottle for tasting. And you can see here on the label when it was opened. Can you see that? It was opened on the 18th of December, so like about a month ago. and you can see there's like about a fingers left of sake here. There you go. You can see it's almost gone, right? And in our little shop here, my guys, they have this on the counter at room temperature. So this is unfiltered, unpasteurized, undiluted sake, which has been sitting on the counter for a month. And my guys think it's still getting better. They don't worry about this. They didn't have any idea about putting in the fridge. It's like perfectly normal business for them to have unpasteurized sake kicking around for a month. And here's another sake in the same from the same product. This is one that my colleague brought out a couple of days ago. Same thing. This is 4 years old, and my colleague had this under his desk in the office for the last 4 years. And the other day he said, "Well, maybe it's about time we should taste this." And this is 4 years old, unpasteurized, still going.
That's strong. Awesome. That is awesome. I learned that from you, Philip. I learned that from you. It's amazing. Because before that, it was kid gloves.
It's low maintenance sake. You don't have to worry about drinking it quick.
Amazing.
Thanks, Philip. Again, a reminder, everybody, if you're not specifically asking a question for Philip, please make sure you're muted so that we can hear him, because when other people talk, they become the main speaker, and it makes it a little bit difficult to hear the awesome things that he's sharing with us. But a quick question for you, Harper-san, from Brandon Duggan.
Yeah.
He said he once heard you say that you want the rice in your moromi to melt fast. Part one is why, and part two, how do you affect the fast melting?
Well, I mean, so it's at a very basic level. Making sake, you make sake by dissolving rice. So the kind of sake that you're going to end up with is like very closely linked to the rate and speed of that the rice dissolves during fermentation. So to sort of make the simplest case for what goes on is, if you want to make a really light, crisp sake, you don't want the rice to dissolve too much or too quickly. If you're making a big umami strong sake, then you want the rice to dissolve more, because that gives more rice-driven umami to the flavor. And so, we have lots of different protocols for each of the sakes that we're talking about today. Each of them has a different protocol at every stage for different ways. But by and large, as you probably guess from thinking how our sake compares to other brewery sake, we probably like to dissolve the rice a little bit more than is maybe industry standard. And there are lots of different technical aspects that influence that. One is how you make the koji, and that in fact is the biggest one, because ultimately it's the enzymes in the koji that dissolve the rice. And you can also you can tweak things a little bit also by depending on the fermentation temperature and stuff like that. But ultimately it comes back to the koji and the enzyme balance of the koji. So like every brewer will always tell you, the most important part of sake brewing is koji making, and that's very true when you're thinking about this technical aspect of sake brewing.
Awesome. Couple other questions, and we can get into that as we move to the next sake. But Emily Cole asked, how did you as a Brit get into making sake? I know that Craig kind of answered that briefly in the chat room, but tell us a little bit of the story of how you became a brewer from the man that you were in England.
Yeah, well, I mean, I left university and I wanted to live overseas. That was the only kind of life plan that I had. I lived in Germany for a year when I was 20, and that was like such a stunning experience that I knew I wanted to live overseas again. And by chance, really, I ended up in Japan. And the quick answer is I made the wrong friends pretty quickly, and we drank a whole bunch of sake together. These two Japanese friends of mine, the three of us, we started going to concerts together. It was originally a music friendship, but we were also big sake drinkers. And the quick version of this is all three of us gave up our jobs and became sake brewers. And we're 28 years later, we're still friends. We're still all brewing, and still don't find much to talk about except sake and music. So no progress there, really.
That's cool. I love to hear that. I am also a JET alumni. So,
right. A lot of us around, yeah.
We have a few of us that got absorbed into this sake thing from spending our time there. Super, super awesome. So we're going to keep looking at your questions, and I'll share them as much as I can, but we're going to also ask Tasho to describe our next sake, which is Red Label.
Right, yes, so the Red Label, heirloom, Yamahai, Genshu, low intervention. This is not for the faint of heart. This is probably the most robust, full-bodied sake, one of the most, definitely the highest alcohol content of any sake in our portfolio, 21%, using the ambient yeast. If Kinsho, if you would describe that as delicate, it kind of pirouettes across your palate. This one comes in and just does the river dance in your mouth. This is incredibly dynamic, robust, powerful. If I were to pair this in a sushi bar, you'd have to go with something rich like uni. I definitely think oysters would be amazing. Philip does, I know cheese is amazing with this sake. A lot of those lactic notes that come out from the Yamahai is great for that pairing. I would go even down south with some Louisiana fried chicken, some Kansas City barbecue. I think it could hold up with something like that, stews, grilled meats. And I love how Philip, how you kind of just challenge the drinkers to try to do anything to alter your sake. There's nothing you can do. You say, leave it out, put it in the garage, run it over with a tractor. Nothing's gonna affect this sake. This sake is unwavering. It's unbelievable and definitely something I feel truly represents Tamagawa. And I did have a question. I know that Yamahai Kimoto refers to not adding the lactic acid. Usually takes about 2 weeks longer. I was just wondering, what is the term in Nihongo for the spontaneous yeast without adding the yeast? And does that take longer than the regular Yamahai, the Kimoto style?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because it's different for every brewery. I mean, there aren't very many breweries anyway making sake with ambient yeast, but because it's a much more complicated system with normal sake brewing. So you choose, for example, the Heart of Oak, the Tokubetsu Junmai. I brew with number 7 yeast, and it's a known quantity. It arrives in a stable state, and I know exactly roughly what amount of yeast I'm using and what the character of the yeast will be. When we're brewing in the spontaneous fermentation style, we don't get to choose the yeast, and instead of having a whole bunch of pure cultured yeast at a fixed amount to start with, it's much more incremental. You have to grow the yeast from a point of zero yeast to the point that where you reach the volume necessary for brewing. And that can be very variable. So we get big variables on timelines with this kind of brewing, which is fun in the abstract. It's a lot of stress if you're in charge of brewing schedules, and these are one of the reasons that people don't tend to do it, because there are a lot more uncertain elements to it, and in terms of timelines and so on. Then it's not as it's not as standard. It's not as stable as for, say, for example, a number 7 yeast. But you already mentioned, I mean, we brew up to 20-21% alcohol with this sake as absolutely as a matter of course, and we've done that with no problem, without a single miss for 14 years now. So ultimately, we have some pretty lively yeast here, and it will do whatever we need to do. You have the Time Machine product, that's also a wild yeast sake. We do one in Daiginjo style, we do a Junmai Ginjo one. We have a whole bunch of different products made without using anything except the microorganisms living in the brewery. And although there's a lot of tearing out of my hair and stressing over it every year, ultimately every year we do get to where we need to go with these, which is kind of an amazing thing, I mean, it's just the only all that we put in is rice and Koji and water, and everything else that happens, these are microorganisms that are living in the water, living in the rafters of the brewery that has been collecting in there for all these generations. But when young brewers come and say to me, I'm really interested in trying this, I always tell them not to do it because it's so much stress, and I never recommend anyone else to do it.
It's
I mean,
almost
I
like
tried it
nature.
once and I pulled all my hair out. You know, that these things happen to us when we're into sake. But that's amazing. Two quick questions about this. One quickly is, can you explain the difference between red and white label?
Yeah, so the white label product, I mean, with the red label product that you sell so much of for us there, I mean, that we press that usually with the sake meter value at about +4, at which stage it has about somewhere between 20 and 21% alcohol usually. And you know, we brew to dissolve the rice. We brew for big acids and big amino acids, and we leave all that in. We don't filter or do anything else to this. We press it, we bottle it, and then it goes straight off to you. With the white label sake, the rice variety is the same. The water is obviously the same. The brewing protocol, up until the point of about the sake meter value +4 is the same. But with the white label sake, we don't press. Then we let it go as far as it will go. And so this varies year by year depending on the characteristics of that year's rice, but usually it gets into double figures in terms of sake meter value. The record is +20, and the alcohol level is somewhere usually in the 21% range, but a few times we've got over 22%, which takes it into a separate tax bracket in Japan, which is makes for very fraught conversations with the tax office, because you're not allowed to sell the sake anymore.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Our current record is 22.6% with
nice.
sake.
Nice.
That's crazy. That's crazy. It's amazing and it's wonderful. I have a quick question from John and Michelle. They were in a bar in Tokyo and they drank a 2018 brewing year of Sauvage Nigori. And it was 100% definitely not John's favorite sake, but it was the other half of this wonderful partnership that loved it. She was wondering if you still make it, because you see it in the tour walkthrough.
Yeah, we make this limited edition Nigori, which is like really thick. You have to shake the bottle like a lunatic, or the last part of the sake won't come out because it's so thick and creamy. And you know, in Japan, when people talk about sake, they say shikohin, which means it's a matter of personal preference. And you know, sake is a matter of likes and dislikes. So we aim to make sake that people will either really like or really not like. So it's kind of nice that our friends have shown that to us, with one of them really enjoying it, one of them really not enjoying it, which is kind of, and that's kind of what we aim to do. And the people who like that Nigori sake, almost all of them are drinking it hot too. It's really great hot. There's this like weird thing that the people like to do as well, where they cut it with beer and make it fizzy, and that's fun too. But definitely my favorite way of drinking that is hot. But all my guys, we really like drinking it, but we really hate making it. It's a real pain in the neck to make. So we don't make very much of it, because we can only make a limited amount of that product.
So there are questions flying in. A couple of them are, if you want to get into brewing and you have this passion, what's the best way to do it? Are there programs, or is it just pack up your bags and go camp out in front of a brewery until they say yes, you can sweep the floors?
Well, the really clever way of doing it is to marry the son or daughter of a brewery owner. That would be my advice to aspiring brewers. But partly because one of the problems that you will face, unless you are married to a Japanese person, is it's really difficult to get a visa to work. Even now, it's still difficult to get a visa to brew. And so in my first year, I managed to persuade the immigration office to give me this thing called a cultural activities visa, which is what normally they give to people who are doing ceramics or something like that. And so it took me about 6 months to persuade them that sake was a cultural activity too. But the downside of that is if you're on that visa, you're not supposed to be making any money. You're not supposed to make a living wage out of it. So it's not very practical as a long-term strategy. And I got married to my long-suffering Japanese wife in my first year, which solved that visa problem for me. But that still is, sadly, it is a real problem. There's obviously now with such interest in sake overseas, there are more people who are interested in learning in sake breweries, but it's not all that easy still. You can't just like stroll into a brewery and even if they want to give you a job, it's not always easy for them to do that.
Yeah, visas are not necessarily an easy thing. There are more questions, and we'll jump to them in a second. But we do also have one more sake on the list. It's kind of a special treat. If we're ready to go back to the future, let's all jump in a time machine and see where Mr. Harper took us. Just basic notes about time machine. It's what we call an heirloom amber sake. The rice variety is Kita Nishiki. Milled only 88%. Ends up about 14 to 15 degrees. If you've had this, you understand this sake. It is completely cool and amazing and wonderful. I'm going to let Philip do the main talking about how he developed the concept behind this, where the recipe came from, and all those wonderful things. I'm going to open my bottle. I haven't had this in a very long time because it is a very special product, and I don't get access to it often. So to make sure that this was on the list of things for us to drink. So I'm going to pour a glass. One thing that I thought Tasha was going to do that we haven't done, and before we go here, let's do one more kanpai, everybody. Thank you for listening and asking these great questions. Again, if you have more, please feel free to throw them in the chat. If you want to ask it directly, like wave your hand so we can see you. Kanpai, everybody.
Kanpai. Bye.
Bye.
Way back at the start of the event today, somebody was saying about the color of the sake and does that come from casks? And wine people, when they come across aged sake and they see the color and you get these like woody notes often with aged sake, and wine people are very quick to imagine that must come from wood. But we don't age any sake in wood, so all the colors, all the aromas that you're seeing, that all comes from the sake itself. There's absolutely no impact from the storage environment. It's all from the sake itself.
Is there a shorter way to say, Japanese-wise, minimal intervention other than heirloom Genshu Namanigori?
Well, minimal. I don't know what Japanese. You have to ask a wine person what they say. And there are a lot of these words saying like the spontaneous fermentation. And we had to make this up because there wasn't any word in English. Although wine people, of course, they have cuvée sauvage in the wine world, which means naturally fermented. And if you look at the red label Yamahai, you can see cuvée sauvage is written there in French, not English. So I don't know what people say in Japanese when they talk about low intervention. I mean, mostly what they're talking about filtration. And in the questionnaire that you had earlier on, you translated the muroka as non-charcoal filtered. Which is, I think, the way that a lot of my colleagues interpret the word muroka, unfiltered. In our brewery, when we say muroka, we don't mean that we didn't use charcoal when we filtered. We mean that we did not filter whatsoever. So when you see one of those like diagonal labels on the bottle that says muroka namagenshu, which is 3U, unfiltered, unpasteurized, undiluted, for our sake, what that means is that we pressed it and we bottled it and we didn't do anything else at all.
Right. When I was translating that, I figured I didn't want to write the longer option of explaining all the different kinds of quote unquote filtration that you can go through outside of just the charcoaling. But most people understand it as charcoal. But very much.
There are a lot of levels of filtration, but with us it's easy. We don't do any of them. So.
Right. None whatsoever.
When we say unfiltered, we mean unfiltered.
Guys, back to the time machine.
Yeah.
I just want to hear how you discovered that. I always imagined like an Indiana Jones scene. You come across the scroll and dust it off. Or how did you come upon that recipe and decide to make the time machine?
Well, when I arrived here, they have sake flavored ice cream here, and everyone told me when I arrived that in the summer the sake sells, the ice cream sells like hotcakes, and they can't sell any sake at all. So. We said, okay, well, let's make a sake to go with ice cream. And that was where the original idea for this came from. And I knew that these antique brewing methods would make this like thick, sweet sake, which would be great with ice cream. And so I think it was when I was on the road with, I forget, was it maybe Andrew in New York? There's a story circulating in New York that I found this recipe hidden in the eaves of the brewery. It's like, it's a really cool story, but completely not true. So what happened was there's this a famous Japanese researcher who's worked with me a lot over the years, and I knew that he knew a lot about these old brewing methods. So I got him to send me a bunch of recipes and chose the one that looked most promising from that, which is the recipe for Time Machine. If you look at the bottle, it says 1712 on the label. That's the year that the recipe was written down in. And obviously we don't add pure yeast cultures to this. It's completely ambient yeast. So this is exactly the way that sake would have been made 300 and some years ago. And we don't polish the rice much. It's polished only to 88% because with the rice polishing equipment that they had in those days, that would have been the limit of the possible. And also 88 is a lucky number in Japan. So we got that on board as well. And if I don't know what you're all drinking over there. Can you see this? This is 2018, which is what we're currently selling in Japan.
I personally have 2017.
Okay, lucky you. Okay, so this is the 2018, which is what we're currently shipping. But in a few days, this will ship to the last year's sake, which is 2019. You can see here the difference in color. So this is the one on the left of the screen there. That's 1 year's worth of color. You leave that for a year, it turns to this color. And we also, because we like aging stuff, we also, of course, have an aged version of this as well. So this is what it looks like after 3 years. You see the color there?
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to try the vintage Time Machine so bad.
Yeah, it's delicious. All you have to do is keep a bottle in your bookshelf for 3 years, and you'll have one.
I guess that's a
Philip,
good idea.
we tried to. I mean, we tried.
The problem is that when I get it, it doesn't last 2 days, let alone 3 years. So I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, just to the flavor profile for everybody. I mean, wow, what an exciting expression of flavors that are coming out of this sake. And remember, again, it's still made from rice. It's still that beverage that we're always amazed at the flavors that come out of it. But there's this nuttiness as people are mentioning foie gras and unagi and natto and all these kind of fun, interesting pairings. For anybody who was asking about pairings, if you look through the chat real quick, there are pairings aplenty for all of the sakes that we spoke about. But this is just an amazing beverage. I have so much fun pairing this with food. I've done it with a classic Chinese deep broth chicken soup with the dark, rich flavors and those nutty notes. And this Perfect. Is a super, super fun sake. And obviously, as Philip said, where it came from, pouring it over ice cream ain't too shabby, as they say. That's a pretty good option as well.
Somebody said bacon in the chat, and now I can't not taste that. Bacon.
Yeah, I mean, on the nose, the first thing that jumps out as soon as I saw that, I also was like, ooh, bacon. Like I can see it. It's that kind of oxidized, fatty, kind of aged note that shows up in this that carries right along. It's quite amazing. Milling to 88%. There's a lot of those things, Philip, right, left in the rice that we normally often mill away that get involved in the flavor profile. There's a little bit more oil to the rice at that point. So those fatty notes are definitely going to show up in the end product, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really different brewing system. I mean, it's in a lot of ways it's completely opposite to the ideas that are modern orthodoxy. So it was a very shocking experience making it for the first time because it was like so different from anything else I'd ever experienced before. But you know, we're used to it now. And a lot of brewing colleagues over the years have asked me how I made it, and I've told a bunch of people how to do it, but nobody has done it because it's too much hard work. So like the nigori that we are talking about, this is another one that we all really like to drink, but we would really rather have somebody else make for us if we could do it. Yeah, blue cheese is fantastic. Someone was saying blue cheese with this sake is so delicious.
So amazing. So amazing. I mean, earlier when we had red label, one of my favorites with that is a poise. I think it's mind-blowingly good with the red label. You know, meats and pork and charcuterie and things with the red and the Tokubetsu Junmai are absolutely fantastic. The Kinsho with grilled oysters and fresh oysters for that matter really plays off those flavor profiles. It's an exciting thing to enjoy. I would like to real quick have everybody raise a bottle and do one last kanpai for a photo. We're going to do some more questions. I'm not going to end it quite yet, but we're getting towards that component. So pick a bottle, hold it up for a photo.
Get a bottle.
Give us a kanpai.
Kanpai.
Kanpai. Kanpai.
Going on, buddy.
Before lunch.
Oh yeah.